How does one go goblin mode on guitar?
Uh, I can't go goblin mode on a guitar. I can't really like play guitar. I just kind of use it as a writing tool. You can kind of just do really stupid harmonies and make really stupid melodies. It's pretty easy. You can just use shapes on guitar. That's I guess like a very accessible way to go goblin mode. Just play chord shapes because the qualities are usually the same.
And then do a little sinister goblin laugh over it, mischievous laugh.
He's really he's shameless in intellectual argument. He's absolutely without character, a moral foundation, or even intellectual substance.
Yo, yo.
Ribadirci.
that means goodbye, you idiot.
Oh, shit.
How's it
Good
going?
afternoon.
G'day, mate.
Good. We were trying to coordinate dinner, but then Edgar got here just like maybe like 20 minutes ago. So I had to go get myself a gas station sandwich.
A Buc-ee's sandwich?
Exactly. Oh, here, let me start my video too. That's loud.
Hey.
Hi. Officially 200 pounds, big boy.
Yeah, and it's your birthday tomorrow, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
How old are you turning? This might go on the public record, so you don't have to say if you don't want it.
29.
29. Oh,
29. Can you do something?
According to like the faggots on Twitter, that is like ancient.
Oh, like gay death happens soon?
Yeah, they're like these fucking 25-year-olds who are like, oh, it's over.
Oh man, I heard these guys in the gym, they're like 24-year-olds who were like, oh yeah, I don't even like it when like younger people talk to me. I'm like, get away from me. Like I don't like I'm old and shit, like performatively being old. And then I realized like, oh, I probably was like that when I was 24.
Yeah. That's the whole like daddy thing, right? Like everyone wants to be a daddy even though they're like 19.
Yeah. Which
I've got a dad bod. No, you're a twink and you're just skinny fat. You have a paunch. That's what that's called.
Paunch. Yeah, the wine paunch.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I feel like everybody's imitating the daddy thing now. All the straight guys are just trying to do it too, and they're doing like fake dildo, like super big dildo in their pants, and like they just hold their bulge. Like you'll see that all the time.
Oh yeah, I've
like,
seen that one. Yeah,
this is gay baiting bullshit. Like, same with the like, oh, are you a top or a bottom? Like, oh, I'm glad you asked about like.
Yeah, gays are funny. Yeah, and we have two of them right here, right now.
Exactly, but we're anti-fag, so.
No, we're not. I'm very pro-fag.
I guess it's true. Yeah, I was like, you like to feed the birds.
like Mary, is that Mary Poppins or My Fair Lady? Feed the bird. I think it's Mary Poppins. Yeah, that's me.
Hell yeah.
So what you up to? Oh, by the way, this is Young Dean. Do you want to be Young Dean or your actual name?
Dean. Yeah, it was
Dean.
like,
Let's just say Dean.
It was like
his artist name is Young Dean, though.
My little performer's name.
Yeah, my stage name.
Yeah, it's Sasha Fierce. Actually, I get into like a different kind of like consciousness when I sing.
It's Crystal Connors.
It's Crystal Connors, which is just like me on fucking meth.
Oh my god, you on meth would be insane to witness.
I would be tweaked out. Yeah. I can't.
Maybe you would be normal though, because you're normal. Because normally you are like you're on meth. So maybe if you were, yeah. You're the first guest on this program actually, who regularly goes goblin mode. So like,
oh hell yes, yes, like who lives goblin lifestyle.
Who lives goblin? It never ends. You're always on goblin mode.
The never-ending story on goblin mode.
Yes. So
Great film.
Sorry. It is a great film, actually, but they should put it on Goblin mode.
For real. Like
yeah.
all the way through.
Anyway, yeah. So this is my friend Dean, and a lot of people who follow us on social media. I don't know if you get these messages as well, but I do think that we like fucked, and like
Oh, really?
we don't. We're just actually friends who happen to be gay. Like, you know that gay people like can be gay and not fuck.
I know. It's like a myth. People like hear about it, but you never actually experience it.
Yeah, I guess because like when I was in Dallas, we were hanging out a lot, and so people were like, "Oh my God, is that your new boyfriend?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, these faggots."
It is so like that in the gay scene for sure. It's also, it's small. Like, what is it? There's like 500,000 of us in DFW, so they're all like, "What's going on? Who's this new person that I've seen you with 3 times?"
And who in the last episode I recounted how I got really badly sunburnt, and that was with Dean. I think
Full
I even
organ body burn.
yeah. So we both got sunburnt. I got sunburnt worse, I think. I got sun poisoning. What?
Fuck. I wish I could run and grab the pit. Well, they don't have a video display, do they?
No.
Yeah, damn. I was like, I have the pictures. I kept them in my wallet forever, and then I keep them in my car now.
Oh, when we did the little sunburn photo booth
at the lesbian bar.
Yeah. So this episode is just us reminiscing about our our summer fun last year. No, but yeah, I wanted to have you on because like you are actually an amazing musician. I have to say you are. Great drummer as well. Like that's a musician, of course, but like you can play multiple instruments, and you recently released an album, which is amazing. I loved it. But also you're kind of very literary too, and I think that's why we kind of connected, right? I can't even remember how or why we connected, but we just sort of like traded.
Yeah, I feel like we were following writers in common, because I was following some like publishers and stuff. And then I think I started getting like a bunch of like literary follows after I started following Stephanie Yoon. She also released a book.
Is that Poetry Grifter on Twitter?
Yes, Poetry Grifter. Yes, I love her. Yeah. She's awesome. Yeah, she always says something to me that like readjusts my thinking, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah. She did a really good interview on Catherine D's podcast about, I can't remember what the podcast was called, but it was after that whole Hobart thing. I don't know if you pay attention to literary world nonsense. I barely do anymore. But like they
remember this.
Yeah, they published like this interview with a writer called Alex Perez, who's like a Miami Cuban American guy, and basically it was just him dropping truth bombs about the publishing industry, but being kind of like I'm not saying this in a sort of tone policey way, but just sort of like, dude, like it's this sort of thing where it's a lost cause. Just don't even like go and build your own thing. That's sort of my attitude towards it. But he said a lot of things that people kind of got their knickers in a twist about. And
I remember I followed him for a while, and he's like very polemical. He's always like getting his hands dirty.
So but Steph did a really great interview with him that was very like pushed back on some of his stuff as well. But wasn't like confrontational. It was really, really nicely done, I think, and really got some stuff out of him other than publishing's whack, man. You know, like...
That would be my perspective. Publishing is like fucking whack, dude.
Yeah. But you've published before as well, haven't you? You've done some poetry here and there, haven't you?
Yeah, I've done a little publishing. There was like this in town, there's like this like artist collective kind of thing, and they're like this traveling audience. It's a bit like I think about it like the book A Movable Feast, but as a movable audience. And they kind of just trap out venues and like do this kind of like high key like lesbian non-binary like celebration of just like, it doesn't matter where you are in your like skill or like aesthetic preference, you can do whatever the hell you want. You just can't be like morbidly offensive.
Yeah. So like
So,
poems about their artificial vaginas and stuff. And
yes. And the and expressing yourself, like it's all always that kind of like new wave, like retro. Never mind, I'm about to go on a digression.
No, do it. Digress. We love digressions on this show.
I was like, yeah, no, that's when I started like kind of like writing. I kind of approached writing as like a way to practice songwriting, and so it was like a way of breaking out of kind of conventional, like just like songwriting, and a way to kind of talk about the kinds of characters that I wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just started kind of reading a lot during that period and started writing, and then sent some things off to random online journals, like would read a couple of the poems and be like, fuck it, sending it. Mm-hmm. And then yeah, what was it called? This weird place or weird publisher, International Human Rights Arts Festival. I don't know, it sounds cool. Mm-hmm. So people think it's kind of like, oh yeah. But it's like this weird, like publicly funded kind of I guess he just like talks to a bunch of different senators and stuff. It's like high-key Democrat, like kind of social policy kind of people. But that was kind of thing. And then what is it? Apocon. They're a cool publisher that actually like publishes like.
Oh, I didn't know you. I think I forgot you published with them, or I didn't know or something.
Yeah, it was like it's probably like a year and a half ago. It was a while back. But I was still writing poetry then. Right now, I've kind of like switched gears to just like songwriting now because I've been trying to churn out more material for the next album.
Do you find it's different when you feel you sit down to write a poem versus a song? Are you already, because I know how musical you are you already like when you write the lyrics to a song, like thinking about, a lick or whatever?
I kind of think it kind of depends. A lot of times it's you can kind of tell if it's a poem or if not, like depending on how much figurative language you're doing, or if you're starting with like a storyteller, like somebody telling something to you. But also I feel like I'm always kind of listening to the line, like even if it's not going to be like a song, I still kind of approach poetry in that way where I'm listening, like I'm not necessarily using meter, but I'm like listening to the syllables and to the phrase and cutting my line and making my line breaks to me where it sounds more musical.
Which is what you're supposed to fucking do with poetry, not like these online bitches who like, I'm just gonna write a whole heap of lines and just press enter randomly, and that's my poetry, and it doesn't scan at all. It's just like a bunch of words that you've just assembled. Like,
well, yeah, that's that like the rebellion against like grammar and syntax and everything, where it's just like, what if we just have no punctuation? I mean, I was kind of like Andrew Dworkin was kind of like that, where she like used as minimal punctuation as possible. But what's funny,
because it's patriarchal.
Well, yeah, it's like it's like it's limitations, I guess, and so you can burst out of them and maybe like connect to more people who, because. But then sometimes I feel myself like I'm like reading the line and I'm like, wait, okay, yeah, syntax now connects, like where it's like a comma would have helped me right there. But I mean, it's kind of the same way. Like if you take out articulation markings, like legato and staccato kind of markings on a section of music, but in some circumstances, it's like super important because it's like how the melody is supposed to sound. So it's like you can't, so if your horn player wanted to approach it in any kind of idiosyncratic way, he might just read the line as like you have those markings there that tell him like this is exactly how it's supposed to sound, kind of thing. And so I feel like it was funny because I started reading Dworkin right as I felt like I started getting really comfortable with using his like the M dash, the N dash, the colon, the semicolon. I was going crazy.
he's a grammar pig.
Yes, no, I got so into grammar because I was like, for whatever reason, that because the modernists were so like hard-headed and kind of like dense and very, I feel like caught in their own hubris, that I was in a similar way when I was like in my early 20s, that I just wanted to unwrap them, So their punctuation markings were insane. And so I was like, and sometimes like they would hinge on like a semicolon, like the meaning of the entire fucking poem.
Yeah.
And you're like, damn.
I know James Joyce and Virginia Woolf, they love an M dash. They fucking love an M. They just can't get enough of M dashes.
I prefer the M dash for dialogue. Like I feel like that's like cool without get rid of the quotation marks and just M dash.
Yeah, sometimes I get I think no, it wasn't the last story I published. It was a couple of stories ago. Like I did that because I like it too. But then the editor was like, nobody's gonna like they're not gonna get it. Like, so we've got to do quote marks. And like, oh, fine. I shouldn't have budged though. I should have like had some kind of modernist moxie or something and just be like, no, I am having the M dash. So
carry a cane and it turns into a sword.
Yes, unsheath my M dash.
Yeah, that's like
you really want daddy's M dash, don't you?
It's like walk softly and carry a big M dash. I mean, honestly, I feel like I that's my big M dash energy. Like that's the one thing I'll never let go is the M dash. That's my fucking shit.
I love that it's like it's doing something, but it doesn't do as much as like words or stuff, but it takes so much space up. I love that. It's just like, I'm here, bitches.
Because yeah, and then you kind of get into aesthetics too, where you're like, because to me it's about like time, it's like space, like how quickly is this interrupting the line? Like it's almost like adding, you know, like an eighth note rest or something into the music, but in this case, like, you know, depending on how you use it and where it's placed in the line, like that's kind of what determines its like length. So it's like it's about what surrounds the punctuation, like the content that surrounds the punctuation that like actually can like give a punctuation marking like real like clever meaning. I don't know. I feel like
gravitas.
Yeah, John Berryman was definitely, I feel like, an influence in that with like the psycho, like schizophrenic syntax and punctuation, where I'm just like, let's fucking go.
Yes. Oh, well, that's a good segue into like you recently released your album, and like I obviously it obviously to me, because I've heard your stuff before, it's like musically amazing, like very rich and Baroque, but the lyrics are incredible too. Like they're very referential and sort of just I can tell that almost I want to like reflect that word that you said back to you, schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Like it's like a Goblin Mode album. I really love it. Like, so
It's
did
very
you
Goblin Mode.
when you sat down to write it, did you envision it as a whole thing, or was it just a collection of different songs that you kind of stitched together? It feels so weird interviewing you, by the way.
Yeah, it does. I'm like, but sometimes I'm like, you know, like when we were hanging out with like all my friends and shit, I was like, well, you're kind of doing this with everybody. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like you have some of the maternal energy of the interviewer in you, like you're just like interested in people's lives, so you ask them questions. But,
which is a very rare skill, apparently, because every fucking person I go on a date with is like and I'm not saying this to like say I'm amazing or whatever, but like just they become obsessed with me because, oh my God, the cats are going crazy. They become obsessed with me because I ask them questions about their lives. And I'm like, how fucking, you know, this must be such a paucity of people, like in terms of engaging with other people.
No, it really is. Because and so I feel like some people like, you know, sometimes there's a crack in the window, sometimes they open the door, sometimes you know, it's like it's very especially, I don't know, well, I think it's universal. I don't think it's just gay men, but like definitely people aren't very like interested in other people's lives anymore. They're more interested in like what they think about them than what they themselves think about other people, in a very, you know, similar way to some of the characters in Flannery O'Connor's short stories. That some of the schizophrenia of the songwriting, or, you know, a literary term might be syncretism.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
I do feel like I have a very syncretic approach to the songwriting, and it was mostly, I was writing the song about like, okay, what if Hagar, the woman who runs to the fountain after Abraham, you know, needs a a son or an heir or whatever, and she runs to the fountain, meets the angel. I was kind of seeing it from this, like, I was still like, I was like so lived out though, like blue, like kind of not blue pilled, but I was so, it was very much like kind of a women's rights song. It was pretty gay. I had to get rid of it. I was like, no. But then I had, but that was one of the songs that I kind of had believed in for a second, where I was like, there's something here. The lyrics are awful, but I'm not like old enough to yet realize that. But then I had like, I kind of wrote 4 different songs in a similar time period, which actually kind of came out pretty well. I feel like I start a project and I like, I feel like I have the juice as I'm writing. I'm like, okay, this works. Like, this is like, this makes sense. This is focus. And then I'll lose focus. And then it takes me a while to get back to the work and then actually like write it again. So I feel like that's why I'm always kind of drawing from other things.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, like different kinds of literature, because I feel like sometimes I need like to talk to something where I'm like, like instead of just like me trying to like pull something interesting out of my ass, like why don't I like talk about what I'm reading at the time? And like that's kind of cool, because I may have written the 2 verses from while reading a different story, and I feel like that's kind of how it ends up happening. But I think I wrote Thoughts and Prayers and I was like, okay, this is a song that I like. And then I guess I had Necessary to Be Good, and then I had the I forget my song names. I'm like, what the fuck? Postpartum Cigarette. I had those 3, and I knew that those belonged together. And then I just started, I don't know, just kept kind of writing, and I was kind of focused on a kind of, I guess like politics of the time. And so, and there's so much happening from like 2000 and when did I start writing these songs? I don't really remember when I started writing Thoughts and Prayers, but it probably was like 2018, 19. Up until, yeah, like right when the pandemic happened is when everything was written and I had yet to record everything. But yeah, so I had those 3 songs, and then just kind of, I feel like I kind of like, because you have to play the songs to remember them, and like I do some notation for like really orchestrated parts of the song, but then lots of times I just kind of make a chord chart and just so I don't forget it. But when I was younger, I kind of just like kept playing them all the time just to remember them. It was such a stupid idiot idea, because I would lose I've lost some cool things by doing that. But then I'm like, that'll re-enter my, like subconscious, and then it'll pop out, like 2 years later.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a very jazz way of doing it, right?
like re-emerge.
Yeah.
Also, like pronunciating, something in the moment for it to reappear later. And like you kind of, you can't look at it with any kind of nostalgia. You just kind of have to be like, I lost all my work. Time to make more work.
So are you going to make more work, or are you just going to let this one breathe for a little bit? Or are you constantly writing things? I get the sense you're constantly writing things.
Definitely, I'm constantly writing things. It's with it being out, like it'll breathe obviously, because it'll take me another like probably 2 years to start not start recording, but goal is to try and start the recording process this year. So I need at least, with the last album I did, I had about like half of the work, and then as I was recording, just kind of more stuff kind of was popping out, and I was hearing more things because I had to be so concerned with the orchestration and the arrangement. But this I'm trying to get like 5 songs like finished for sure, and then like the arrangements solidified before I like start the recording process, just so I can like knock shit out of the park. I like to go in like a fucking like train wreck. Like, I have all these things that I have to do, and I know how to do them, and it's fucking I feel like it's funny because when I met Stephanie, or before I met Stephanie, she thought I was like a fascist account for a second. She was like, oh,
Why?
she's like a normal person.
Why?
I can't remember. I remember we were talking about it, and I don't think she could remember either. I was like, that's so funny. And to me, that was really funny. I liked that. And I thought that was really charming because I'm like probably the furthest thing from that. But then I'm also like, I kind of think about it too. I'm like, no, I'm a little fascist in the way that I like do work. Like
No, you must. No, I've said this before on the podcast. You must be like, as an
Yeah.
artist, you must be fascist in the way that you go about things.
Yeah, it was like fascist authoritarian. Like you don't have to be so stubborn that you can't be compromising. But in a sense, I feel like I kind of like the impossible saying never compromise. You know, it's like that's obviously impossible. Like everything is a compromise. But that's what I'm saying. Like as long as you are determined to compromise as little as possible, you can actually like come up with all these things. Because that's the other thing too with like recording and maybe even just writing. You see that you have all these limitations, but you're working with all those limitations as like factors into, you know, your tone, your characters, the aesthetic you're going for, or just the content of the story itself. I feel like you have to use your limitations as strengths, and that's like I guess like sometimes a hard pill to swallow, but other times, I mean, I feel like, I mean, I'm 29, I kind of know what I'm doing, but like,
oh, I'm so old now. I'm 29.
Yeah, I'm freaking 29. I don't even talk to young people anymore. Fucking, I'm just so old. No, I don't feel old yet.
Yeah.
But I will soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. So with the writing of the album, so you were obviously you said that you were sort of like reading lots of different things before we get to Flannery O'Connor, which I'm pretty certain is a very big influence, particularly for one song, because you literally sing the title of that short story. So, but what were some of the other things you were reading? You mentioned Dworkin.
Dworkin. I wasn't reading Dworkin during that writing phase. That was kind of like Dworkin was like my early kind of like consciousness, I feel like, where I was like really trying to approach writing and songwriting in like a written way and not just like a musical way.
Yeah.
But the like Adrienne Rich is kind of like a perennial poet. Like I return to her work like all the time. I even
you love your femos, don't you?
I fucking love female artists. It's like it's a thing. Like yeah.
Femo means feminist in Australia.
Oh, femo.
Wait, Dean does the most terrible Australian accent, by the way. He tries to imitate what I say, and he ends up sounding like a retarded Irish person or something.
Oh my god, yeah, I can't. I sound like British, like Macas. Oh no. Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, no, I love female artists for whatever the fuck reason. I don't know. It just happens. Like my favorite singers are women. My favorite poets are usually women. But I guess it's not true. Tom Waits is like my all-time like favorite, I guess, artist. That's like how I knew I wanted to write. And I was like when I was like 16. So I was like basically like training from like, you know, from drumline, classical percussion, all these playing in bands and stuff, all these things that I was doing because I wanted to be an instrumentalist. And then when I heard like Tom Waits, I was like, oh shit. I can like, you don't have to be just one thing. You can do all these other things as long as you like, you know, it's like spinning plates. Like you have to just kind of live your life in a way that you are reading, writing, composing, and, you know, making enough to live and eat some food, you know?
Yeah. So Adrienne Rich, so is she?
Oh yeah. So, like, who else I had included in the album? Langston Hughes is like where the album title comes from, about a poem about Emmett Till, and he also is quoting Dante in there, which is really fucking cool. It was just kind of cool because I feel like I was using all these like really syncretic quotes from poems that I like really loved. Robert Frost is in there. I forget which poem. Um, the but I feel like Adrienne Rich like probably takes the cake on all of it.
Mm.
Where I
Yeah.
was really, she kind of, for whatever reason, I gravitate to her work all the time.
Mm.
She has a very compassionate, like view, and kind of like in the way that I feel like Flannery O'Connor, she doesn't let characters like, she's not gonna say that they shouldn't be compared to the devil, like even when they do evil things, like in like the Misfit or A Good Man Is Hard to Find. That like she has this compassion for characters and for the motion of their soul, like, and what they take with them into eternity, and that's like her primary concern. And kind of I guess her way of going about having compassion for evil is kind of that same thing that like Mark Twain kind of says, like, who's praying for Satan, which is like a very naive thing to suggest, because it's also like, well, greatest isn't Satan's biggest deceit that he proves that he's not as evil as he is. So he's sympathetic enough to pray for. So it's like, I feel like that's a paradox, that's like, you can't really close the gap on that. It kind of remains open.
Well, I think with Flannery O'Connor that it's less about so it's more about actions, evil actions, and that which all humans have capacity to engage in, and obviously that's part of her kind of Catholicism. But it's also interesting. You mentioned Faulkner before, because like I used to be a bit of a Faulkner bro when I was in my 20s.
Hell yeah.
I don't think that's a thing, but
Oh, that's definitely a thing in public education universities.
Yeah. But like now I'm sort of like, now that I've read a bit of O'Connor, I sort of just view her as like the antithesis of him in a weird way, like, because I think he's all about psychology and memory, and I think there is a bit of like cynicism there that I think she kind of lacks. Like she has a certain honesty about people, like that, people are capable of doing really evil things and really good things, sometimes moment to moment. But for me, like, it's more about the heart for her. That sounds kind of schmaltzy, but you know what I mean? Like, it's a kind of, it's less about the psychology, less kind of measurable, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. Because I feel like that's the thing. And that's like, her concern is the one most valuable thing that you have, which is like a soul. And I think that's what's like, that's why her work is kind of, it feels like kind of impenetrable sometimes. I remember like reading her as a young kid, and like, I just didn't get it. It felt like all very prosaic and like, but the mystery of it was, kind of always stuck with me, which I was like, why do I not know what to take away from this, like, and I feel like that's the kind of thing that kind of gets young people into reading, is like not understanding. It's like that like you, in a sense, you kind of have to start believing to have any kind of perception in what the story is telling you. Before you can actually start like analyzing it. But you also have to kind of, like in the essay that I suggested we read, that the primary function is you have to enjoy it. Like that's what will create analysis, or like, induce the necessity for an analysis. And then like a lot of kind of like the arcs of her stories, I feel like too, are like, what was that thing where the element of suspense in her stories are like transferred from the surface to the interior? And I feel like, we're left with that, like in the Partridge Festival, and we're left with that in the same way in Everything That Rises, and there's like good Parker's Back is a good story where that happens. Late Encounter with the Enemy. That one's like really intense. It's all
Is that the one about the Confederate general or whatever?
the old
Yeah.
Confederate general, and like all the past crimes like hit him like as he's dying, and he's just like this, like he's been dead on stage. It's like so comedic too. That's the other thing. It's that like it's that W.H. Autumn poem, or right? Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Showing my ass here. Hey, I enjoy reading, okay? That's all. I don't claim to be anything else. But the that poem, what is it? At the Musée des Beaux-Arts.
Oh yeah.
Where the old masters, they knew about suffering, and how it happens like when all these mundane things, because it doesn't concern their life, it's like, so all these, like Icarus fell into the ocean while some guy's just ferrying villagers off to the next spot. He doesn't know what the hell just happened.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's very much oh my gosh, that's very much Flannery O'Connor's approach to it, I feel like.
So when did you first encounter her, by the way? So obviously she's a big influence on some of your stuff. When did you first encounter her? University?
No, in high school. Because she was like A Good Man is Hard to Find is like on lots of standardized, I think, curriculums in America, or at least in Texas.
I haven't read that one. What's that one all about?
That's about this family goes on a trip to, oh my God, Will is going crazy. They're going on a trip to Florida when an escaped convict basically crashes the party and kills everybody.
Oh yes, that's right. I've heard that one. That actually, I'm pretty sure that is the basis of, or at least it's inspired. Have you ever seen that film, Fat Girl?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's kind of like this. This family goes on holidays, and one of the girls is really fat, and she's teenaged, and she's sort of like really jealous of the other girls and stuff, and then she gets killed by an axe murderer, and it's completely out of the blue. Like it's never hinted; it just happens. Like everyone just gets killed. So it sounds.
Oh my Lord!
It sounds similar.
Yeah, it was like a little bit. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like where the concern in a horror movie is about the dead bodies, the concern in O'Connor's story is that like gesture that woman makes where she says, "Oh, you're one of my babies," and then he just like shoots her like right after she says it. M dash. There actually might be an M dash. And she recognizes as being like responsible for him, like and connected to him through like the deep mystery, the Christian mystery is like kind of like what she calls it.
Yeah, well, she was asked, I think I remember I read some old interview where someone was like asking her about like what writing's all about, and she was like, well, you fictionalize something to reveal a mystery. I think it's something like that, like, which is like a very kind of weird way of putting it, but like, no, I get it. I totally get it. Like you don't want to give the answer, and she never does, right?
No, yeah.
It's just like it's more, every story seems like a provocation more than
like
but not in a sort of like abrasive sort of way, like I'm just being contrary sort of thing. It's inviting you to
like it's that's kind of why she uses violence, is to like bring you back to reality, and in some cases that reality is incredibly shrouded, like at the end of Everything That Rises Must Converge, after his mom was given that lesson that he always wanted to teach her, like it's just the street and the light, like, and that's what we're given like as a setting. And so that's his internality becoming external. And so taking kind of that idea of the suspense, going from its surface, which is like, he wants to prove, his mom's racist, and he's using, all these black people as like pawns in this like kind of game of nepotism, and he, you know, is so guilty. And it's from a guilt of having been, you know, this burden to his widowing mother, who lost everything in probably a prenup, you know, because they used to have that, you know, great ancestral plantation with, you know, what is your great grandfather owned 200 slaves kind of thing. And, you know, he rejects that, but at the same time, he like looks back at it with nostalgia for something he never possessed. So that's kind of that, like his melancholy is kind of based on those tensions where it's like he has these sort of racial motivations, and I think it's like, you know, very what's the fucking word? Not apt, but it's very contemporary. Like the story is still like these things happen every day still, like and it, like, you know, to me, like I kind of see like Julian as very much like a cut and dry, like kind of woke.
Oh yeah, Julian is a libtard. Yeah,
yeah, for sure. And but yeah, like, but to him, like black people aren't yet like people, like they're like a means to an end.
They're kind of or like they're this kind of symbol or something. They're still not actual real people.
Yeah, and he's like, in a sense, like his desperation is kind of what is making them objects of history again, you know, like to him in his own personal history. But yeah, like that I forgot where the digression started from, but
the Confederate, no, one of the other stories I think you were talking about as well.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing about, like, I guess why I liked Flannery O'Connor so much is because I felt like if, like, I have her big old very well loved collected stories.
Oh yes, with a peacock on it. She loved her peacocks, didn't she?
Yeah. And there's a lot to learn, and it's like it's just so easily. She's a really good teacher, I feel like, in that way. Like just about the craft of writing in general.
But because that's the thing that I find really kind of appealing about her writing. Like it's not overly flashy or anything, but it's also not simple. And it's also and it goes to what I was saying before, that she writes towards not, you know, lots of kind of short stories in particular, and she was a master of short stories. Kind of they basically culminate in some kind of epiphany, right? Hers do to an extent, but it's weird because it's not so much a realization of a kind of concrete idea that she, like, polemical idea or anything. It's more just like she actually said this, like the revealing of a mystery. You know, so it doesn't stop there at the end of the story. You know, that it invites you to think more about it in a really kind of.
Yeah, that's the best thing about it. I mean, it's like but there's always these kind of clues that, like, you know, like even in her own idea that, you know, she hopes that last gesture of the grandma, I know we didn't read it, but that in a good man is hard to find, that, you know, she hopes that last recognition will become a crow-filled tree from a mustard seed, you know, like in his heart, in this would-be prophet, you know, like soon to be, you know, made into that prophet. So a kind of like Paul-like character who, you know, persecuted the Jews and then, you know, removed the scales from his eyes. But in the sense of like Julian in Everything That Rises, it's very much he kind of, the scales being removed show him how much he cannot see, like of his own life. And like that's what I'm saying, like his mom loses the vision and it's connected to his vision, because I mean his mom has like a stroke from the blow to the face, and then it's like knocked her eye loose, and it's like it's brutal. And they both realize like how much they do not know.
Yeah, it's interesting how like you said, yeah, the scales are removed from his eyes to show how much he doesn't see. That's almost like Buddhist, you know,
yeah.
but she's obviously extremely Catholic, but Catholic in a very idiosyncratic way. I think she's like not annoying like online trad Caths.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, that's the other thing. I think, you know, we now live in like a time where like it's the supremacy of the image, I think. And with writing, you had more private lives and you had more private relationships with ideas and rituals and other kinds of things. And you wrote more often. So I feel like that's the other thing. It's like, if you are, you know, kind of, I don't know. Yeah, if you're interested in creating things, I feel like writing is one of the first things in. And I'm not trying to look back or be any kind of Luddite where it's like, oh, the screens, oh, the phone, you know, like I'm just saying that I think because we are so concerned with images now, I feel like in a text base, when it was still text based, like the way culture was mediated to us, images for sure, but I feel like text was the most important, and I feel like it was just kind of that's what I mean. Like when you said idiosyncratic, that's what I mean. I think everybody was a little more idiosyncratic in a way.
Yeah.
There's
weren't flattened by the image. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, because the image is a tyrannical flattening tool. Like it's also beautiful. So it's like, I mean, in any kind of new regime and there's terror, there's also beauty. And what is it? She tries to elicit a degree of pity and terror in you, but by using, you know, and cooling it off with comedy. I mean, even when in that really dramatic moment where it's, oh, you're one of my babies and gets shot, like, you know, the misfit makes a joke and said she would have been a good woman had there been a man to shoot her every day of her life. And like it's like that's like this whole family just got executed. Like, you know, he just shot an old woman. And the cat, you know, there was a cat with them. They had a baby. They killed the baby. So I mean, he's fucking a monster. And but still, O'Connor doesn't see him as like the devil. Yeah. Like, but as performing evil. And so that like, I feel like that's kind of the kind of going back to like, I guess like, well, no, I'm not going to make that general statement where I was like, maybe that's the kind of it's hard to find that kind of compassion for your characters in male writers, but not I don't actually believe that because I don't want to go into the gendering people's writing and bullshit because that's a man can be just as compassionate as a woman, and a woman could write, you know, some D.H. Lawrence kind of smut, you know.
Yeah. But, on that question of evil though, what do you think? Where do you stand on that? Do you think you're more in her camp? Because like I read this and I'm like, I get it, and like I would like to be more like that, but like the way I view evil is like I want to destroy it. Like I don't want it to like you know, infect people's lives. So like when people like I will read Flannery O'Connor, get the message, and such that it's not really like a message. They're not really message stories, but I'll like internalize some of the mysteries that she's getting at from that sort of idea of, I guess, forbearance towards people who do evil things. But you know, just in my life and the way that I think about things, I'm like, I don't know if I'm kind of like big enough to do that. Like, I'm fine for like murderers and rapists and like kitty fiddlers to be executed. So like that's fine with me. Like, you know, like.
Well, I think it's unreasonable.
Spend too much time in Texas, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. You're all about the death penalty now.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
It's unreasonable to be compassionate to those extremes, because that is a very extreme form of compassion. It's almost like the terror of compassion. Like it's kind of monstrous to ask, yeah, like, somebody to even forgive, like, even when we talk about, they frame it in that kind of terms, where it's like, oh, could you forgive somebody if they killed their family, like this and that. But I think that's where um that's kind of beside the point, like I guess the forgiving part, because I think like even like the character, the misfit, yeah, like even if he avoided uh thinking of that family that he killed just to get on another couple miles until he gets picked up again or something, that at the end of his life that woman comes back. Like it's kind of like that eternal return. There's no way you can stop it from coming back. You will see it again. And that's what I think she means, like the mustard seed, this bitter truth, this bitter we just had like some gay hand signaling about Edgar's making salsa. Salsa break. Hit it.
I want salsa.
Oh yeah, you gotta come try it when you get down here. Yeah. Blender break. It's the time of the blender.
I'm leaving this all in.
Oh fuck yeah. my psychosis. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, do it all done. Fuck yeah, let's do it. Blender mode. Blender complete.
Awesome. That was more of a blitz than a blend.
That was a blender blitz. Edgar, could you try that again? Give us more of a blend this time. No. He gave us another blitz, but that's okay.
Anyway, where were we?
That the mustard seed, and that gesture comes back at like the end of his life. I think that's kind of what, at least maybe like if you thought of like her cosmology, like how she like views the universe, and like just like through the Christian mystery, like in her own terms, but that like late encounter with the enemy, that's kind of the thing, and but like I kept trying to think about Singleton and his like, because he always kind of seemed, he's like a madman. He's like I try to think of him in terms like as the misfit, because he's like this married into a rich family in a shotgun wedding. The whole family died off, and somehow he got all of their stuff. But he's never been regarded as one of the family.
Yeah.
And
the short story, The Partridge Festival, by the way.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And he, in this town was started by like a very wealthy merchant, which is Calhoun's, great grandfather. That's the other thing too. I feel like all of her stories are concerned with ancestry, like and history, and how that affects even the actual personalities of the characters.
Yeah, and how like sort of generational change and stuff like that, and how messy that is, like a lot of the time,
and the geography and the.
But yeah, sorry. Finish your thought on that. Was that?
I was just gonna hop to the other story.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So was I. Like, so we probably should give a little bit of it, if for people who haven't read it. I don't know how. Is this a well-known story as well? Like, does everyone read this in high school or?
No, these are like more like deep cuts.
Okay. All right.
Everything That Rises, I think.
That was her last collection, wasn't it?
There was it was either a collection of stories or it was like an actual book. I know Wise Blood got turned into a book, or that she made it like a novel length. But I don't know if it's the same character of Enoch. Enoch is a very, very interesting character. And I actually have to revisit the story if I want to say much about that, because of like he was always a very mysterious character that was hard for me to understand until I feel like, having read so many other things and returning. That's the other thing, like returning back. I feel like reading is a syncretic process,
Mm.
even like I mean, not to be like everything is syncretic, but like it kind of is, I guess. Because yeah, you like return to the story the next day. You get to a stopping point, unless you fucking, you're like a readaholic and just fucking mainline a 600-page book in one day.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you could retain.
No one does that. No one can even.
like,
No one can even read a 100-page novella anymore. Like
it's that guy who's like, I can read like this,
yeah.
turning all the pages.
No, but like one of the short stories we kind of looked at that we set as homework was everything that rises must converge, and that basically we've sort of talked a little bit about it, but I'll just give a plot summary. Basically, this guy and his mother's an old Southern. would we say she's a belle? I don't. Maybe I don't know. She's got some pretty old-fashioned ideas about Negroes.
Oh well, for sure, yeah. She's definitely a racist. She's a part of her time. Well, that's an important, knowing who you are.
Yeah,
that is a loaded phrase. Like she means that in a.
So basically, they her and her son, she needs to lose weight. It's the funniest way to start the story, by the way. She's like, I need to go to a reducing class.
Like highly also charged phrase, like reducing class.
Yeah.
She's literally moving down in class, like brilliant.
So like they have to go down to this place where she's going to like a weight loss class, and so her son escorts her down on the bus, and it's post integration. So there are Black people on the bus. And it's basically about this like bus ride. This woman kind of says a whole heap of inappropriate things or inappropriate to her son. So her son is very, like we said before, is a libtard. So he's sort of like, don't say that, mom. Like, and then a child and a Black woman and her child get on the bus, and she starts kind of playing with the kid and kind of gives him a penny, and then the mother gets a bit sort of pissed off at the condescension of that, whacks her across the face, and then the mother has a stroke, and the son is like distraught by that as the mother sort of dies on the street. So that's basically the whole story. Very simple story, but like there's so much in it, right? Like there's so much going on, and that's what I think is really, really sort of appealing about her, is her ability to do that. That's what I was saying before. Like her style, like it just there's a kind of it's not overwritten. It's not even like particularly Baroque or rich or anything like that. But there's so much sort of like you can feel the depth in it, even when it's being light. It's sort of like lighthearted, I think, as well at the beginning. So in terms of the comedic tone, which I thought in a lot of the stuff that I read after I read the story, I was just like, what are you people on about? Because people were talking about. And I guess maybe it was framed by the ending, which is pretty dark, but like the whole thing up until that point is actually really funny. Like this clueless woman, like talking about like,
and how clueless Julian
and yes,
Julian
that,
is. Like he
that
is
more
the
so,
most insufferable guy.
Yeah,
like, and it's just so like that's the other, like I'm always kind of laughing out loud, like literally when I'm reading these fucking stories. And any Flannery O'Connor story, I feel like I'm always just cracking up. It's always like you expect this like very heavy, all these very heavy things are happening are also very like, not anesthetized in any way, but like they like, she's a careful surgeon, she doesn't, you'll heal. Like, she wants you to get better. Like, like but I think, like even setting, we don't know where we are. Let alone where we are in the South, like it has, there's no city other than like she sets up the blood pressure issue where it's like, and that's why the ancestry plays in. So yeah, Julian is basically despises his mom because she is adaptable. She takes every dissension of socioeconomic class with courage. But by doing that, she sacrificed a huge part of herself that he sees as like a kind of shallowness or like just being behind the times. He also wants to be a writer, which is like the disgruntled early 20 something writer is a common recurring character. And there's also an issue of like sex class here, where he won't let his mom dominate him with like by being a burden to him in a way that's like only an emotional one, because she supported him his whole life. And yeah, when she lost the ancestral home by widowing, and I'm not even sure. Well, yeah, like I'm like wondering how far back that went sometimes in history. But yeah, then like even gentrification appears in here, or white flight, I guess, in the where they're walking through a part of the neighborhood that used to be good 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Since it had been fashionable 40 years ago. His mother still kind of thinks it's a good neighborhood. So she's like, like she doesn't see the changes. And in a sense, that's her like biggest asset. That's how she's gotten her child, everything that he could have ever asked for.
Yeah.
Still believes in him, even though he's not really writing anything,
And that's a sort of like,
wants it.
Yeah, that sort of obliviousness is why like I had this New Year's resolution that is kind of related to that, where I wanted to become more boomer, like as in like baby boomer, like because like I find there like a lot of people, my age and younger kind of hate them and whatever, because they got a lot out of an economic boom time and everything. And I don't know about it in the US, but in Australia they got free education, they got really good wages, they got like houses on the cheap and everything. So but also they have this obliviousness that is actually I find quite charming. Like they
that was the grill pill, right? Where it was like,
yes, it is the grill pill. Right. Yeah. That I'm like, that's so that there's a kind of freedom to that. And some people would say it's kind of, ignorant or like I said, oblivious, but it seems like a nice way to go through life, rather than just sort of fixating on everything in the news or every kind of political happening or whatever, like younger people tend to do,
Right. I do think that kind of fixation is definitely a very contemporary kind of.
But that's the Julian side of things. That's his that's his kind of, failing.
Because I mean, the whole reaction, I guess, like when we talk about like white liberal, like what that means, it's like like somebody who feels guilty, by being being white and having to kind of reconcile and sort of reparate all these things that, but which is confirmed in this, like he actually has ancestors that they can go back to the lineage, that they know that's how they got their wealth was by being slave owners. So we know we're somewhere in, post Civil War, one of the southern states. And but that kind of I feel like that kind of got caught up in like even the talk of like the PMC stuff, where it's like, you have these people getting educations, and then they rebel against like their parents' upbringing, and then they find what's wrong with the previous generation, but it's also because they feel like they've been deprived of something by the previous generation, which is the same thing Julian feels here, which is like like he, as much as he deplores racism, and that, which I think he honestly believes, which is obviously great, but like he doesn't act that way, and he has yet to really actually recognize African Americans as like actual other individuals with this, and he's very concerned with class, because he connected with the Undertaker, this black Undertaker on the bus. He had deep conversations, and it was described as like he was almost being like seduced. But he was like, no, he wanted to be like friends with like a black lawyer, a black doctor, and that's like like black capitalism, support black business, all that crap. It has like analogies, and it's very contemporary in that way, because I think these issues are still here, especially in America. I mean, this just is kind of a perennial conversation, and I think this story kind of frames a lot of the ways these kind of different camps think about each other. But that was one of the lines was him visiting. He's like in his internal castle where he's king and god of everything. And he's back in that ancestral mansion, which I always find is funny because he didn't even know, he's never been to it, he's never seen it. But he goes back to it. And that's, I kind of ripped that line. What was it? Because it becomes like a battle of teaching his mom how to, behave in this new world that he knows so much more about, which is clear, which we only realize much later he has no idea. In a sense, I feel like it's almost like, he's using these, African American people as like an instrument of war against this, just a very domestic kind of dispute between mom and son, which is just
very
like
Freudian.
Yeah, like you just Well, that's the thing, And then there's clear that he's not going to be that he's being sacrificed to her pleasure. That like he sees her kind of almost like all surrounding, just like
devouring mother.
He
Sorry, I'm getting too psychoanalytic.
Like devouring mother. Yes, the maternal excess, the
chthonic, the Dionysian, like just overwhelming him. He wants a Apollonian order or whatever. I can never say that, but yeah.
But yeah, that's sorry. The line I was trying to say was when the Black woman who's obviously got a child who's misbehaving, and is using that to like act out by entertaining Julian's mother, and she has like a fetish in a sense. She fetishizes like young Black babies. She finds them cuter.
Yeah, because she thinks they're cuter. Yeah,
and when the woman comes on the bus, he's like, Julian has a morbid satisfaction of injustice in daily operation, of witnessing injustice in daily operation, and it confirms to him that there's not anybody in like 100 miles radius worth knowing. So he's this and I kind of see the bus that they're on, that it all takes place on, as like it's kind of like Howard Zinn's like, you can't be neutral on a moving train. So like in a sense, like history is the bus. Like all of Southern history is happening all in this one tiny place. And it's that's to me like that's kind of the when she talks about anagogic gesture, or that moment when it's like how we
I still don't get what that is.
Like our participation in the divine. The anagogic gesture of like, in that essay, A Good Man on the Suspense and A Good Man is Hard to Find, is the grandmother's recognition that we all belong to the same, we are all each other, and that it's the lack in all of us that has kind of produced this kind of action, the sort of necessity for the misfit to do this kind of evil.
Well, lack is a good thing. Like I think I've heard like evil described as just an emptiness, like a lack. Like it's not actually a positive thing. I don't mean positive as in good, but like as in a thing that like it's just this sort of hole. I'm just an evil hole, sir.
Well, see, that's the kind of like, in a sense, like Julian always is, infantilizing his mom. And it is a true thing. Like, like he felt like had he been the man who had been there to shoot his mom every day, like somehow he could have got that mansion back, and the plantation back. And he could have used it in whatever way he went, and he wouldn't be poor, and he wouldn't have to, learn all these things about this new society to become an actual writer, or actually to have anything to say.
Yeah, but that's the sort of his morally sort of his moral myopia, like the idea, because like this is such a, it's so funny that he's the libtard character, because this is such a libtard sort of like characteristic. Like they all think that like, oh, if I was in Germany in the 30s, like no, you would be a Nazi if you were in Germany in the 30s. And like recognizing that is like, I think part of that sort of, I guess, forbearance of everyone else, that like, you know, we all have these capacities to do like really fucking heinous shit, and you can't deny that. Like, and he wants to deny that. He wants to sort of like, he doesn't want to acknowledge that in himself, while like highlighting that and like pointing to it in his mother, like that capacity for, you know, quote unquote evil. And it's irredeemable as well, you know, like.
Well, yeah, he displaces it externally onto his mom and her behavior and her racism, and then retreats from his own into his own little ancestral internal mansion. And he kind of, like, I mean, that's where he, I guess, like the self-absolution happens, and also just the kind of role that I guess he has taken is he doesn't know anything about this new world. He's just as innocent and oblivious as his mother. And in refusing to see that, which he should have recognized as when his, like, because his mom's in on it too. Like they together are kind of battling, you know, like who can be less racist. Because I do think in a sense his mom kind of gets the idea, like she's not that oblivious. But she thinks that by, like, you know, by giving the child a nickel, it'll prove that she, you know, because she talks about
I love the blacks.
Exactly. Yeah, because I mean, she's just kind of like the boomer version of the Democrats now, where it's like, you know, like they say weird shit, they do the kente cloth, you know, like that works for a very specific kind of person. The kneeling and all that shit.
Their arthritic knees like crumbling to dust while they
and, you know, I mean, had Julian it takes, Julian is so stubborn, it takes his mother being, I don't think she dies. I think she becomes just in like completely changed because she's had a stroke and she now has lost, you know, she's retreated into the past, the same place where Julian would go. He didn't know where he was, you know. And now I think that's what happened, is that, like the suspense that was on the surface comes into the interior, but the interior like becomes all he can see, which like it's just the lamp, and he's just yelling help, help, help into the darkness. Like he's literally gaining new sight. And I think to me that's like, you know, the kind of gesture that will make Julian a better man. Like he I think will learn from that situation and how he behaved and and the places that he went to, and the risks he was willing to take for something so stupid, you know, like, because he's responsible for that, you know, like he's just very much responsible for that. And also, you know, like this, you know, he kind of sanctifies African Americans in a way that's like fetishistic, you know, like, and it's like, but he kind of, what is it called? Where you trade, it's like
exchange.
There was that like psychoanalytic term that I was trying to remember, but I can't remember.
Transference.
Transference. Yeah. He was entering a sort of transference with his sort of mythologized idea of what Black Americans were like, and their, you know, kind of want of reparations. He wants reparations. So that's kind of the thing, you know, and you know, his mom and himself, you know, don't deserve to be poor, just as anybody else doesn't deserve to be poor. So I think that's another kind of like, you know, going back to the Christian mystery thing that Flannery is like, you know, always engaging with, that she says, if one side asks reparations, well, then the other is going to ask for reparations. That's everything that rises must converge, and that's what the racist thing that Julian's mom says, I think everybody should rise, but on their side of the fence.
Yes.
And it's like, well, then that's not exactly how that works. But I think that's another kind of idea. So that like his mythology of mythologizing of Black Americans is the same kind of mythologizing of this past that he never had, that he, is kind of not like revanchist or anything, but like in just a kind of melancholic, depressive, self-absorbed kind of way, where it's like, it's almost like being mad at your mom for not teaching you, I don't know, in Spanish.
Yeah, that's actually a kind of coming of age thing. And maybe you've gotten to this stage of life as well now that you're an old man of 29. Yeah. But a coming of age thing, I think usually it happens around your 30s and sort of as you're getting into middle age, is that you kind of just sort of you realize your parents are going to be your parents until they die in terms of the way that they think and act and everything like that. And it's not actually your job. It sounds like that bullshit woke slogan. It's not your job to educate them, So I think that's like you come to that realization. Not that I ever really cared about what my parents thought or whatever, but I think a lot of young people do that. It's like, oh, Mom, you can't say that, or like whatever, they are who they are, and like they're your parents, and that's actually more important, I think, anyway. So, and that's actually borne out in the scene at the end when the woman kind of, basically clocks her, as in knocks her upside the head. Like he worships Black people so much in this really kind of weird way that he
in a very narcissistic and selfish way.
Yeah,
that's what it was. It was
he makes no effort to protect his mother. Like I don't care what color your skin is. If you go for my mother, I'm just going to get it in between you. But the way that he was
still driving home the lesson, and
it was like, you deserve this. This is what you deserve, sort of thing.
And he didn't realize how messed up his mom was yet.
Yeah.
Until she got up and kind of was waddling away, and then was like asking for her father.
Yeah, and that's another, and I think you mentioned this before, that's another way in which the story is like quite contemporary, because it's like you still have these white liberals in the US who are just like, Black people are angels and we must like literally prostrate ourselves before them, sort of thing. So,
well, yeah, it's like a way of turning like a socioeconomic issue into like a culture war, like kind of narrative, and that's how you kind of get rid of actually changing the circumstances of anybody's life.
Or you can just ban Newports.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's literally what they did, wasn't it?
I don't know about this.
Once, I think a state or something tried to ban Newports, which is pretty fun.
That's awful. I have a gun.
Yeah.
Don't ban Newports. Wait, I was about to say something. I was like, I don't have a car bomb, and no domestic terrorism here.
Nope. You're allowed to have a gun in Texas, though.
Oh yeah,
right?
For sure.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Anyway, what were you gonna say? You're thinking.
That I forgot what we were talking about.
About like white people worshipping Black people.
Oh yeah, they turned it how we could actually change socioeconomic issues for Black people through politics. But once you turn it into a culture war narrative, then it just all becomes performance, and money gets shoveled to different areas, and then you get some writing on the street. You get like a street named after you, and then then it's bread and circuses as is, and you just kind of hope the next thing isn't as bad as the last one. At least that's how they do it in America. They just throw some water, piss on the fire a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then piss on it again when it gets too big.
Yeah. So the other story was the Partridge Festival, and I actually didn't read this one because I couldn't find it.
Oh,
so
shit.
you're
You
you're
told
gonna
me.
yeah, you're
I
gonna
could
have
have
to
scanned it.
no, I wouldn't make you do that. But yeah, so what, like, I got you to pick these ones, so why did you pick this one? Like, what's the
Because
vibe of this one? I've read a
I
summary, so I know what it's about.
I slammed these two short stories, probably because they come up side by side, but I kind of saw similarities of Julian and Calhoun. Just because they're both they're wannabe writers who do nothing. They don't it they
That's most right.
yeah, it's like they're not actively writing, but they consider themselves writers.
They'd be one of
and,
those people on Twitter who's always talking about writing.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
never
yeah.
just actually writing. Well, they write tweets. That's what they write.
Right. There are some people who treat it like it's like an essay form, and I'm like, I get it, but like at a certain point, just turn your brain off.
Yeah. Get a notebook out.
Yeah. It'll be better, I swear.
Yeah.
You don't have to perform in front of us.
Mhm.
But the Partridge Festival, I saw the kinds of, so I kind of like took, in a sense, no, okay, that's a different song. Sorry. I'm like trying to frame it. This is why you shouldn't give me the synopsis for something. I'm like, digression.
No, it's fine. That's what we're all about. We hardly ever give synopses anyway. It's just like, we just go straight into it, start talking about it. So
this guy, this young man, like 23, seeing the signs of getting older. He wants to be this rebel mystic artist, but he really enjoys selling refrigerators and appliances. And his great grandfather was a master merchant who started this town called Partridge. And he is trying to rebel against that. He doesn't he deep down knows he loves selling. It's like a part of him, and he recognizes that. But Flanagan kind of describes it as he's waiting for the birth of his real artistic rebel mystic self, all hyphenated together.
Oh wow, interesting. Okay.
So he works 3 months out of the entire year and fucks off for the rest of the 9. He loves working those 3 months, and he refused to get an allowance from his parents, obviously because they're descendants of this powerful merchant. He refused to, not because he said it was independence, but not because he was trying to be independent. It was because he really enjoyed selling. So he is visiting his aunts, his great aunts, because there was this event at Partridge called the Partridge Festival, or the Azalea Festival. And it has, it's like where all the community comes together. And there was a shooting that took place wherein 5 dignitaries and 1 bystander were killed when this guy named Singleton shot them 10 days after he was, they did a mock court. They put him in this privy with a goat because they didn't buy the Azalea Festival badge. So it was just a little ruse, it wasn't, it was just some bullying. And so that's kind of like what starts off. That's the reason why Julian's here. That's where the story starts. And then he walks around town because he's gonna write an article. So he's gonna interview people about Singleton. And so he goes to this soda boy, and he sounds almost like a reverend. He's like moralizing. He's like, "Oh, what do you think about this ritual? Did you sacrifice? Did you make your tribute to the gods yet?" Kind of thing. And it's just like he's so up his own ass. Like you can't help but laugh. It's like you want to strangle the life out of him. You're like, shut the fuck up. Like he's like insufferable. And because he sees Singleton as somebody who is as a Christ-like character. He sees himself in Singleton because he chose to be himself, and the whole town was against him. And at first you think he's up his own ass completely. And then you start kind of learning more about the town through, like, he interviews this other guy who said that the innocent bystander was actually like the town drunk, and he was a huge nuisance. It was the one good thing that Singleton ever did for this town, was kill the town drunk. And then he goes to the barber who knew him a little bit because his sister-in-law was he was one of the Singletons. And then we learned that Singleton, was brought into this family not as a Singleton, or no, I think that was last name. He took their last name. And then was left everything because after a series of shitty things happening in a row, I guess, then he got all their property and mismanaged it and doesn't work, but pays money for sex. He's like, but he doesn't talk to people. He just looks down. He knows you're there. He just refuses to engage with you. And then you also learn that the town kind of does some extreme things. Like, they poison his well. They they kind of terrorize this guy. So instead of actually like accepting him into the community, they do like ostracize the guy. He's not a very likable person. Like, he's a fucking bastard for sure, but he kind of was made a bastard. So he gets back to his aunt's place, and the aunts have the girl from across the street who kind of huffed off earlier when he was talking about Singleton, because she thought he was gonna. So that he realizes this girl thinks the same way about Singleton, so that they see him as a Christ-like figure, and she's gonna do a paper on him, blah blah blah, or a case study. And so the great aunts think that he's going to the beauty festival, and they really are going to watch the festival and kind of get the angle and how it all happened, like how the assassinations happened. And that's when they realize they both have come to the same conclusion. But because Calhoun is so concerned about depth and so he realizes he's just as shallow, because he thinks what's her name, Mary, is so shallow that, and he's always trying to skate, but they realize that they're exactly the same. So they see their shallowness within each other. And then he makes she's like, you haven't gone to go see him yet to interview him if you're doing a paper? Like, that's the first thing I would think about. And then he's like, you're too scared to go see her. Like, I'm gonna go see him at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Like, and they're like, okay, bet. Like, and then they go see him, and he's a psychopath, and he basically tries to rape the girl and expose himself to her, and they get out of there. But there's a beautiful scene. It's amazing. I've this sentence, the last sentence of the fucking story is, I'm just gonna literature nerd out for a second.
Yeah, just read it. Just do it. Play the guitar over it.
Yeah. So basically, this is just a kiss scene. Like, they just escaped the state prison mental hospital, having just thought this guy was Christ-like, and they realize that he's just a psychopath. And it's kind of meaningless. Like, what his act was evil, and he was made and pushed to an extent and created into a bastard. But there's not much compassion that we're supposed to have for him. Other than bringing his violence brought them together, because without it, that's when she talks about violence being for good or for evil, so it brought these young couples together. But anyway, so there was a figurine that his great aunts gave him of his great grandfather. It was a carving, and they're like, oh, you look just like him. They start telling and every time he's looking in the mirror, he sees this innocent face of his great grandfather. So when they stop the car, at first he sees Singleton's face in her, because that's what was the connection. They thought he was their saint. They each saw at once the likeness of their kinsman, which is Singleton, and flinched. They looked away and then back, as if with concentration they might find a more tolerable image. To Calhoun, the girl's face seemed to mirror the nakedness of the sky. In despair, he leaned closer until he was stopped by a miniature visage which rose incorrigibly in her spectacles and fixed him where he was. So he sees her in the image of the glasses, round, innocent, undistinguished as an iron link. It was the face whose gift of life had pushed straight forward to the future to raise festival after festival. Like a master salesman, it seemed to have been waiting there for him from all time to claim him. So it's like, literally, she just collapsed space and time in one sentence and like literally told you the end of the guy's life, basically. It's like they grow old, they grow happy. He sees, his grandfather's face, but it's actually his face at a very old age. So it's like she just went like that and time traveled. That's just like, to me, that's what a master writer can do. And like shit like that, when like I kind of first and foremost respect writers just like based on how they can write, like, and use the medium. And so like, yeah, shit like that I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, that sort of thing is like super hard to pull off. Like,
oh yeah,
because most people, like, if it's not done well, just be like, what the fuck? Like, so it's super hard to kind of figure out like what it means. Like on the first reading, it's like a mystery. Like as you see, like it's still on the surface, and it takes a little bit to kind of realize that that's what you just read. Like, because I remember at first I was like, oh, he sees like, this tradition that he couldn't break, because Partridge is a little bit of a crooked town. Like in a sense, like their righteousness, they're rebelling against these old kinds of things that kind of make singletons. Like, because he was like, well, he was poor, and like they fucking terrorized him. And in a sense, it was like fun for them, like to kind of make this man an evil man, and then it killed, that anger that they caused killed 6 people. And so I guess like in that in using that kind of like, because in a sense it's like a mass shooting, so I kind of like was looking for contemporary like to look at my own America and see how I could. Your own, you own it, that's yours.
Yeah. Well, my own private America. Yes. Where nobody is poor. Like the kind of like meaningless evil that's done in like mass shootings, where like, everybody's trying to prescribe it as like, oh, it's incels, it's toxic masculinity, it's like all these things. And it's like, I'm sure there are also like many socioeconomic issues that could be changed that might, alleviate some of these pressures. I don't know. And then just talking about like young men in general. And I think like, being men, I think, like Flannery O'Connor has like a really good perspective in like how men think, like how young men behave, and how, but like what they really, really are thinking like deeply. And I don't, I think that just comes from her sensibility and her like the way she's read her whole life. Because to me that can only come from reading and like experience, like, and having just like a sort of militant compassion for, men, instead of like, sort of generalizing all their behavior as a certain kind of thing. Like you kind of see why men behave a certain way.
That's why I often find that, how like male writers often get like cred for like, oh, you write women so well, that's partially because like all the people who interview them are women, and most of the industry and reading public is women. But you never hear like female writers who like do men really well. Like, and I always find I'll read something, but like I really like women authors as well. Like I'm like you, but like sometimes I'll read something and I'm just like, that's not how a man thinks, honey. That's not how a man thinks. Toots, like you need to. But yeah, like she writes men really well, I think. But so And there's a couple of, and I tend to like females who write men really well as well, like writers. Just because it's, you don't, I can look over that sometimes if I see something that just doesn't quite like fly for me. But then when you get someone who gets it, it's just like, yes, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like, because like both these men have a persecution complex.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, in a sense, Julian's transformed into a saint and transforms himself into Saint Sebastian, sacrificing him to, you know, himself to the
And
pleasure.
Saint Sebastian is referenced early in the story too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And in the song.
Oh, there you go. Yes, I know.
And then the same with Calhoun, which is, yeah, like very direct. You know, he's even feeling guilty of his own life because of how pure he sees Singleton, this like, you know, fucking bastard of a man. Like, but I do kind of think that, like, which I need to be more familiar with John the Baptist, but to me he's almost like a bit of a John the Baptist. Singleton is, or he would be a kind of John the Baptist had he, you know, lived his life a different way. So that persecution complex, I feel like, is like kind of common, and just like in like just I mean, it doesn't make sense to like call it like American masculinity or anything like that, but it's like, you know, like it's kind of that Horatio Algiers thing where it's like rags to riches. Like in a sense, you're born oppressed by the burden of your potential.
Yes.
And how like you just kind of are, you know, if only you can just do it this impossible way, you know, you can have your whole dreams come true.
Yeah, but that's a sort of a narcissistic kind of way of looking at things too, because it's like with the persecution complex, it's like, well, if I didn't, you know, claim my birthright, then there's something wrong with the world. rather than me, you know. And so that's where that persecution kind of complex comes from, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think it's like that sort of borrowing or you're putting it off on somebody else. And in a sense, to me, both characters refuse to see their actual, like, you know, because like for Calhoun to become the rebel artist mystic, well, that's how he was going to live his life. Like he was going to know, he was going to, you know, plan the next Partridge Festival, you know, or not next one, but like he's a part of the guy who started it, or part of the family who started it, and who started the entire town. So like he's going to take up the charge with his wife Mary, and you know, basically try to make it a better place. And
like the Michael Jackson song, heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race.
Hell yeah.
People dying. Shaman. All right, you got anything more to say about Flannery O'Connor?
No, I was just gonna kind of start talking about the song.
do it. Which song?
We'll just Last and Prayers, just because that's like with the three stories. Because so the persecution complex. So in the story, or in the way I've structured the song, Thoughts and Prayers, the pre-choruses, or sorry, the verses are basically like a school shooter. Basically the premise of the song is like, what if a school shooter could talk to his victims, and like what would each say? So in a sense, I've made Julian, I've called him Julian, you know, it's like his name, and he wears like a fabulous hat, and
I'll link to the video, by the way.
And so that he feels like, you know, this other kid's existence has basically denied him his. So in a sense, he's made a point. He's made his point by killing these kids and then himself. And that's, like he was there to teach them, to teach people a lesson kind of thing. And then the kid who was shot is basically just incredulent and is just like refuses to see it's just like sees him as somebody who took his life from him and just justly so. But there is a gap between them that never closes, and to me that's like what Everything That Rises Must Converge is basically that. Like everything that rises in America will converge at any time, and bullets start flying, and like these are the kinds of things I guess that we deal with. And I guess to the premise of the Thoughts and Prayers was like basically amounting to like how we kind of ritualize mass violence in like we mourn it like as like a country in symbolic ways, but like nobody's like really like actually trying to like change it. And I'm not sure like anything like like gun regulation would do that much, because certainly there would still be mass violence. It would be different weapons, because you have to kind of get rid of the desire to do it.
Yeah.
And so
also people always, this is interesting because people always bring up Australia as an example of gun regulation.
I thought you might even say so.
But the thing about that though is one that there's similar cultures, but there is enough difference that it's not like people here don't go out, like people here don't go out shooting. You get that in the country or something, but that's it. Like, and most of the population is very urbanized, so which people don't realize. They think like Australia is all the outback, but it's mostly sticks to the East Coast on the three major cities. And it's all suburbs. So, and also the government like confiscated, like basically bought back everyone's guns or whatever. That doesn't mean there's not guns around. People can get guns like if they want, but people don't want to here. Like it's not as culturally like important to Australians because Australians are mostly lazy and like they don't want to go out shooting things.
I feel like it's probably because of the different history. I'm not sure like what I have like zero idea about history in Australia.
Oh, and we're rule followers too. People love fucking rules. They make out like they're these rebellious kind of people, but like most Australians are like, you got to stick to the rules. And we saw this in that pandemic. Like people went absolutely ape shit if you didn't follow the rules to the letter. Like you're outside without a mask. Oh my god.
Got to get on Facebook Live and post your. What's the idea of the Queen in Australia?
The idea of the Queen? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, do they love her? Do they hate her?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, she's pretty much like very well liked. She's dead now, though. She dead.
Well, yeah. I guess because I'm like, in a sense, I feel like our gun culture is probably linked to like just the kinds of rebellions after rebellions in America.
Yeah.
And like the idea of liberalism and its extremities. I mean, like also like it doesn't really make sense because like as you said, like there will still be guns there are still guns in Australia. They're probably harder to track. And like the serial, you don't have a database of serial numbers and all this, shit. And like license and who owns what weapon. And so I mean, but we have those systems in America and they don't work very well. So so I don't know. I think it's kind of like it's kind of a top-down issue or like a bottom-up issue. It's like if you want to fix mass shootings, you have to kind of change the way socioeconomics. You have to change socioeconomic like.
And also like perhaps think about locking mentally ill people up again.
Yeah, no, I mean,
rather than just honestly, releasing them out into the streets.
Honestly, I remember I talked to one of my friends. Sometimes he's like, honestly, we should just like have sanatoriums again. Like,
Yes,
like
yes.
some people are not allowed to be in society, and I'm like, I agree, but then I'm like, but what happens when like you give somebody the power to do that, and they're like, all people who wear high heels go to jail.
Or I'd modify that. All people who wear Crocs go to the sanatorium.
Yeah.
High heels we can keep.
You don't believe the sexy supremacy of the Croc?
No, I do not.
Croc of shit.
All right. Yeah. Did you have anything more to say about Flan or?
She sucks. What? Don't read her.
Yeah, don't read her. She sucks.
Yeah.
She's really bad.
Boo. Mid. Fucking mid. Flannery. Mid. O'Connor.
Harry. Mid. Tradcath. Ego.
Yeah, read something based, like I don't know what are the base
Bronze Age mindset.
Yeah, pervert guy. Yeah. Read Bronze Age, Middle Age, pervert.
Yeah, that's right. I like that you're looking at your boyfriend while you say that.
Yeah, he just gave me a beer because he's a good boyfriend.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I will. Where can we find you, Dean? I know where to find you, and I'll link to it. But if you want to like verbally tell people where to find you,
verbally assault people to find me. I don't know why you'd want to find me after this, but Twitter at yearning prison.
Prison. I thought it was person. Did you change it?
No, it's always been prison.
Has it? No, it hasn't.
Yes, it has. I've never yearning person is like there's no poetics to that.
Okay, all right, yearning prison.
It has to be
must
more
have just
pretentious.
You know when you just read the first letter and the last letter of a word, like I must have always just read that. Wow.
And then Instagram young.dean. That's what the album is. You can remember the band name is Young Dean, Young, not like a rapper. Like the age.
Which you are, even though you're 29 tomorrow.
Yes. That came from all my friends in my folk country group. They're all like 20 years older than me. And they always call me Young Dean. So I was like, you know what? I kind of like that, the sound of that. That's my one interior, or like actual straight from the interior, like earnest, this is who I am kind of gesture. It's like, here's a real nickname. But the rest, I'm not going to write songs about myself. I'm going to write songs about weirdos.
Weirdo, like school shooters and stuff like that.
School shooters and literally white-faced terrorism.
Yeah. And that's why we love you, baby. Thank you for coming.
From one terrorist to another. I just want to say it's been a great honor and a privilege to fight alongside comrades in this war against the gay agenda.
Yes, the gay. Well, that's a whole other podcast. That's like the Patreon special. We'll like.
I had to put something in.
We'll lecture these gays about like various things, but
about making gay hot again.
Yeah, not being prudes, not being fucking weirdo like
Catholic converts angry at the world.
Angry at the world, not being obsessed with trannies. Like, why? Like, oh what God, are you doing? Yes. Like,
let transsexual people live. Jesus Christ. Grow up.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, that can be for another episode. Yeah. Thanks, baby. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Heavenly Father, for your absence tonight. Say